I made it a commitment to do things to put myself in uncomfortable situations.
Every person goes through a journey, but if you're going to be in the presence of Andy Isabella today, you're going to be in the presence of a real star. Andy's greatest potential, even though he's already risen to the highest levels of every little kid's dream in America to play in the NFL, he's still got a bright future. But the best of Andy is only now really starting to fully flourish. He's someone that I stumbled upon down in San Diego when I was doing a speaking gig down there. What was the event, Andy?
Operation Blacklight. I was like, who is that guy with the big biceps standing over there? I'm big into health and fitness, so I was like, man, this guy looks like someone that I could connect with.
This is an NFL football player who's young, talented, incredibly successful. He's been around the league for 6 years now, something that's not easy to do. And I know all the demons he's been through personally, all the battles, all the scars, all the ups and downs, all the impostor thoughts, all the self-doubt, all the chips on the shoulder, oh, I shouldn't be here. So much of Andy's fight is actually up here. He's very talented, but he also had to work twice as hard as the next guy.
It was a constant battle. It was a lot of a mental battle too. When I was younger, I did have a lot of athletic talent. It kind of came naturally to me, but for me, it was always you got to work a little harder. You got to earn the spot. I'm naturally kind of quieter, not the first one jumping at something. Sometimes I had to sit back and look at everything. Someone was always in front of me, and I had to work my way to get that opportunity. Nothing was ever just handed to me. I had to earn it to get there. You're gonna fail. You're gonna mess up a lot. Just because it might not be going good right now, it has no dictation on how it could go in the future.
All right, you guys, this is going to be a special episode of Man on a Mission today because I got one of my favorite people in America on the show with us today, my boy, Andy Isabella. Andy's someone that I stumbled upon down in San Diego when I was doing a speaking gig down there with a bunch of other amazing people, all kinds of winners in this room. What was the event, Andy? It was
Operation Blacklight.
That's right.
I remember it. I was like, who is that guy with the big biceps standing over there?
These little guys?
Like,
that must be an NFL athlete right there.
Yeah. I was like, who's this guy? I was like, who is this guy? I mean, it was, and like, there's some people that like he's doing something that you want to do. Like, it's like, I'm big into health and fitness. So I was like, man, this guy looks like someone that I would get along with, someone that I could like, connect with. And I heard you speak a day later. And I just resonated with your story so much. And what really hit me was when you talked about going to Notre Dame or being at a Notre Dame football game, and your uncle, I want to say, was dead serious during the national anthem. And it took me back all the way to my first game at UMass when I played was versus Notre Dame. And instantly I just felt a little connection. And then somewhere down the road, we connected in over the phone. And then I've been working with you, and you've been helping me, and I've just grown my confidence and as a person tremendously just over the short time I've gotten to know you.
Yeah. If anybody has the pleasure, especially now, I mean, you know, every person goes through a journey, but if you're going to be in the presence of Andy Isabella today, you're going to be in the presence of a real star. And, you know, Andy's greatest potential, even though he's already risen to the highest levels of every little kid's dream in America to play in the NFL, and he's still young, he's still got a bright future. But the best of Andy is only, I think, now really starting to fully flourish. You know, it's kind of it's a bummer that we can't take what our way of being and our emotions and what we know and go back in those rookie years of our life and sort of apply this knowledge. But it's part of the pathway to greatness, man, is it takes time to fully mature out. But I've had the joy of watching Andy since I've known him. Every time I meet with him, we talk, we get into the problems, to the emotions, we get into all the hell that is happening behind what it looks like to be a winner at the highest levels. It's not pretty in many cases. And as we've unpacked it and sort of broken it all down and rebuilt it up, I've never really seen someone move so quickly with turning something that is such a detriment to whatever's potential in their life. We're such good at sabotaging ourselves, but I've never seen someone flip the script so fast and really manage these heavy emotions and this control. You know, one of the first things we did, I'll start here, I guess. Actually, real quick, I'm saying, what event? That was the fighting event. Michael Chandler was there that we met.
Yeah.
Yes, man, I got to grapple. I don't know if you did, but with like one of the best wrestling fighters in the world. But it was pretty cool. But great event, man. But yeah, that was a blessing because that's where I met you. But watching your transformation from then till now was really amazing. But when we first started working together, one of the things that I had Andy do. And I've done this a lot. This has been a practice of mine for many years. I work on it myself. I practice it daily. It's like there's an angel right here named Eric Rock. And over here is this little devil man. And what we did with Andy is we said, Andy, we got to name that guy. We have to name the bad character on the other side that is whispering, self-doubt in our head. We're not good enough. All those imposter thoughts, the emotions that steer us, the fear that presents itself as a procrastinating thought. That is a voice that is often the one we listen to more often than this voice. And as I've gotten older, I'll just tell the audience this because this is so valuable. I realize all day, all I'm actually doing all day is having a conversation between the good voice and the bad voice. So this is little Rocky. He's a sabotager. He'll kill you if you let him. And this is Eric Rock. This is the man I'm meant to be. This is the person, this is the angel that is trying to guide me to where all the money's at in life, all the fulfillment, all the happy places, but it's always through the hardest paths. It's not against like happy dragons that are sweet and kind. It's against ferocious ones that are mean and want to eat you. But this is the guy that's going to get there. This guy's going to say, you can't take on that dragon. Stay home. You're not good enough. Now he puts all those whispers of doubt in her head. So the second Andy named that voice in his head and gave it a persona, that's where I saw Andy take off, and he really transformed. So let's talk about who's that voice that you named, Andy? Why don't we start there? Because I think this is a great topic.
Yeah, no doubt. We named him Lil Izzy, and that Lil Izzy is that guy that has me hiding from situations. It's when things start maybe not going perfectly that I start to hide. I start to avoid certain situations that maybe can elevate me to the next level. And I think a perfect example of that growth in me was I recently was with the Pittsburgh Steelers for only 2 weeks. I was there. I was literally there for 2 weeks. I went there a week earlier. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I want to say this. My brother plays for Duquesne football right in Pittsburgh City, and my grandma, bless her, she would always say, brothers stick together like glue. She would always say this. And she passed away this summer. But I think there was a reason why I was in Pittsburgh, even for the short time I was there. Maybe my grandma had something to do with it up in heaven. So I think that's something to do with it. But getting back to Lil Izzy comes out when these things aren't going perfectly. And obviously this year for me has been perfectly. I got cut, then I have had a couple tryouts. And then I did well in the Pittsburgh tryouts, so they signed me while they had some injuries. And while I was there, I had that voice was coming out like, you're just this guy coming in. You had maybe a failed first half of the season. It's not going exactly how you want it to. But I'm able now to quickly identify that little voice in my head and be like, no, I'm going to put myself in uncomfortable situations. So just in the 2 weeks I was there, and 1 week was a bye week, so really we were only there for 3 days during that week before we had the weekend off. I made it a commitment to do things to put myself in basically uncomfortable situations, whether I would get there early in the morning and I would go right up to the coach's office and just sit in there and just be present and just try to get to know him. And I built a relationship with that receiver coach in just a week, just from overcoming that little doubt in my mind, that the little Izzy that we call him. And there's another thing that a lot of players do now after COVID. They give out basically take out lunch, but you still have the option to sit in the cafeteria. But I made it a decision that I'm going to get my lunch. I'm going to sit down next to someone, or I'm just going to sit there if no one's there and just wait for someone maybe to come and eat with me and get to know them. And in just that short time, I reconnected with Daryl Young, the player development guy in Pittsburgh, and a guy that I met earlier on that I didn't grow that relationship as much, but spent time with him and just a bunch of other people that I got to meet in that short time and build kind of little relationships with that are meaningful, really meaningful, and something that I would kind of hide from earlier in my career if things weren't going the way I thought they would go. Like, so say there was the NFL there's so many ups and downs, and I see so many younger players and even just older players, they're players in general, if things aren't going well, they want to hide. They want to get away from the spotlight, or they want to like not talk to anyone. It's almost like that little voice in their head, but there's so much depth and so much meaning that you could obtain from just trying to be present and try to just learn from other people. And I know you talk about it, that you're always being an interviewer, and that was something that I would go in there and try to do is just be an interview and see what I can learn in those 2 weeks. I learned so much just from being present, and we talked about it last week in our meeting. I mean, we could have talked for 3 more hours probably about the stuff easily.
We ripped through so much, man. And you know what's interesting is this is what's cool. And I got to ground the audience here. Andy's got a lot of depth. You know, he's a published author. He's got a book. Go buy it right now. Incredible book. So much depth. It'll blow your mind. Every week, Andy sends me his writings. And I can't tell you how powerful his reflections are because they show such harsh honesty about some of the inner battles that he's going through, but you're seeing sort of the other side of the coin now sort of flip, that a lot of these reflections, man, are coming with really powerful sort of Bible connections, biblical connections to something much greater than ourselves. You're watching, you know, listen, authenticity is an interesting thing. I can sort of take little things from different people, put it into my own existence, create frameworks. I see a person that we talked about, Tim Tebow is like someone that I look up to, as someone that I like his way of being. I'm going to mold myself as I grow my status and my impact to be a way of being like that that's authentic to me, but he kind of gives me that roadmap. We have this collection of people that influence us over the years, and you know, when you start teaching it, when you come out of your comfort skin, first and foremost, of doing a thing, and then you start trying to teach it, that is where you can really start getting dangerous in life. But before you can effectively do that, you really have to know how important it is to sort of manage all these emotions. And every time I'm with him, sort of the level of depth of the onions that get unpeeled, so much depth. I remember reading his 40-day Bible. Was it the 40-day Bibles that you wrote? How did you?
Yeah, 40-day Bible transformation, mindset transformation.
Listen, if anyone listening to this podcast wants to change their life in 40 days, like legitimately go live and die by this every day. It's one thing you got to read and some actions you got to do, some questions you got to answer that day. We'll make sure we drive people to all this stuff that you do, because this is an NFL football player who's young, talented, incredibly successful. He's been around the league for 6 years now, something that's not easy to do. And I know all the demons he's been through personally, all the battles, all the scars, all the ups and downs, all the imposter thoughts, all the self-doubt, all the chips on the shoulder, oh, I shouldn't be here. You know, when you're a small kind of guy and you have a passion for football and you somehow make your way all the way to NFL, you know that the road for a guy like Andy compared to someone maybe who had, you know, a natural like 4.40, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, so much of Andy's fight, like, is actually up here because he's very talented, but he also, I feel like, had to work twice as hard as the next guy. Can you speak to that, Andy, sort of like the connection between the old way of being just to get in the NFL? And then we'll talk about the transformation once you get there. But just to get there, what kind of dogfight was that for a person like you?
Oh, I mean, it was a constant battle, and it was a lot of a mental battle too. I mean, I think when I was younger, I did have a lot of athletic talent. It kind of came naturally to me, but it was always like for me, like, oh, you got to work a little harder. You got to earn the spot. Like, right. You kind of know me. I'm naturally kind of quieter. I'm naturally kind of like not the first one jumping at something. Sometimes I had to sit back and look at everything. So it was always like that. Someone was always in front of me, and I had to work my way to get that opportunity, which was valuable in itself, where it was like nothing was ever just handed to me. There was always some sort of, I had to earn it to get there.
Did that create resentment along the way, or chips on the shoulder in and of itself, feeling like, you know, your path was harder for whatever reason? I just knew you felt like it was harder. Obviously you have talent, undeniable, because you made it all the way to every little kid's dream at the highest levels. And you know, you've had some incredible success even in the NFL. It's not easy when you get up there though, but along the way, were those chips on your shoulder? Do you felt like you became reliant on those to fuel the fire inside your soul to go fight?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll revert to this story that's actually in one of my books. I had a coach named Preston Parker, and he was my track coach. And when I was a freshman in high school, I was the fastest kid that had probably ever come through Mayfield already as a freshman. But in reality, Mayfield wasn't that big of a school. Like, it didn't really matter. There's a lot of other schools that had a lot more talent. And Coach Parker would always tell me that he'd always be like, you're going to race this kid named Shelton Gibson. He's going to destroy you. Like, when we get to the district meet, you're going to get smoked. He would literally tell me this. And in my head, I was pissed. I was like, I want to be the best. I want you to look at me. I'm your runner. Like, I want that. And that kind of put a chip on my shoulder. But at the end of the day, he was right. And I didn't really realize this until my sophomore year, when we were running, and I was the first kid at Mayfield to make it out of the district track meet. And we go to the regional track meet. And and I was supposed to run the 200 meter, but I knew I wasn't going to win the 200 meter. So I skipped the race. I ended up skipping the race and just ran the 100 meter, and I got beat so bad. But then he ended up kicking me off the team for a little, and it was there that I kind of realized, like, man, maybe this guy is right, because I'm a sophomore, I'm not the best, but I kind of had this chip on my shoulder a little, because he wasn't giving me, like, I was his runner, but he was telling all these other people that were going to beat me, but he was right. So later on, he takes me to they call it the Spark Combine when I was going into my junior year. So he takes me to the Spark Combine, and then I ran a 4.3, and then it was like kind of blew up or whatever. But he still like has this like, you're gonna have to work a little harder. And because I ran that 4.3 at that Spark Combine, we ended up going to the regional combine in Columbus at Ohio State. And we went, and he takes me down there again, spends the whole weekend with me. After kicking me off the team, he kind of gave me a second shot, which I'm lucky for. And I got absolutely destroyed at that camp. And it was there that I realized that he was right, that I was going to have to work a lot harder than most people if I wanted to get where I wanted to go. So that's what I really did. I started working. I worked a lot harder. And then by the time I was a senior, I kind of had proved him that, hey, now I'm the guy that you were talking about when I was a sophomore that I would get smoked by. Yeah. And he was such a pivotal character in my life, of someone that, and track is the reason why I got the scholarship to UMass. I mean, I didn't have any football scholarships, and that was kind of a chip on my shoulder as well.
This is for the dad who dreams of being a hero. The one who wants to chase his kids without running out of breath. Who wants to stand tall at his daughter's wedding. This is for the mom who dreams of being the example. Who wants her kids to see strength, courage, and pride in their mother. Not just in what she says, but in how she lives. Listen, your health, it's the foundation of everything you want in life. Your dreams, your family, your purpose, your mission. Without it, everything else just fades away. I know you feel tired. Life's exhausting. But what if the very thing you're avoiding because you're tired is the one thing that would bring you the energy that you crave? The gym is not a drain. It's a source, a resource. It's the one place that gives you back more than it takes. Here at Peak Health and Wellness Center, this isn't just a gym. This is a sanctuary. It's where dreams are rediscovered, purpose is born, bodies are not just rebuilt here, but so is your mind, and this is where lives transform. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. It's about showing up for yourself. It's about family. It's about your dreams. This is the year of different. This is the year of yes. This is the year of saying yes to you, yes to courage, yes to health. Yes to the life that you were meant to live. Join us at Peak Health and Wellness. Make 2025 the best year of your life. Start today. The life you always wanted. It's just one step away.
Let me unpack that. You told a story. But I think that, the underlying message, something I want to pull out of that and just hold out for the audience here. I love dissecting in front of people where winning comes from. Like it comes from all sorts of places, but most of winning and that sort of competitive edge to go kill in life, it comes from a fire that has to be birthed somewhere. Many times it's birthed in trauma. Chips on the shoulder is a great example of where someone can create sort of that burn that ignites at the right time when you need it most. Because here's the story: I was the fastest kid, sort of naturally gifted, fast white boy in Mayfield, and we go up to where the big boys are, where the inner city kids are, and I get smoked. And the whole time, man, my ego's bruised. Oh, I'm damaged, and it took me a couple times getting beat down before I realized this really impactful mentor that had popped up in my life was right. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna have to work harder than everyone if I want to compete at the highest level. So somehow that was ingrained at you at a young enough age where you actually took that seriously. And so being the hardest worker in the room is something, since the day I met you, I could read that off you. That's a non-issue. Where I spotted the I wouldn't call it an error, but what had worked for you your entire life. And dude, I read this quick. You can tell me if I'm wrong right in front of our audience. What had worked for you the entire life to create the competitive edge to go out and up, I'll just say it. It didn't necessarily work in the NFL once you got there, because those chips on the shoulder, that the energy that's omitting around people that are already the very best. These are vets. They're older. They're paid. All that doesn't necessarily going to net that next level result that you were looking for. Like at some point, and this is something that is tricky to really fully understand and leverage for many people, and maybe it's not true for every guy, but in most cases I think it is that'll get you damn far. It'll get you all the way to the top. But really the true component of where your greatest value lies is how you make people around you better. It's how you lift other people up. It's how you get out of your own head so you can get in other people's heads and get them out of their imposter thoughts. And that kind of leadership, that servant leadership, and realizing that all these children in the audience right here, that, like, oh, poor me, victim this, chips on the shoulder, fire. I get it. It works. Let's do that. But we don't realize, like, we're living this dream, and it's passing year by year. It's going quicker, it's going quicker, it's going quicker. And are we even enjoying it? Are we just in our head so damn much trying to find the fuel that got me here to take me into the end zone in the NFL against the best in the world? Is that going to work? And that was the thing I spotted, and it's the only instinct I had when I got near you, is to try to unleash what I knew was deep inside you, and that was so much leadership potential, so much depth. And you pair that up with the fuel, the fire, the hard work, naturally being fast, maybe not the fastest, but you pair that up, all of a sudden, man, like you just gave yourself a whole new value proposition in life. You just added so much stock value to you if you could elevate the locker room. But how do you do that if you're an introvert? How do you do that if you're shy? How do you do that if you're a victim, if you're poor me, if, oh, it's not going good, I got cut again? Like, this is the it's hard for people to understand, but this is what the best in the world actually do. And so now that I kind of unfolded this, unpacked this a little bit, maybe speak to this and talk about if Andy Isabella today is a 6-year vet in the NFL, could go back and talk to Andy Isabella year 1, year 2, year 3. Tell me what those conversations look like.
I would tell that version of myself that get around people that are going to lift you up. Don't be embarrassed if you're gonna fail. First of all, you're gonna mess up a lot. Listen to the right people, and just because it might not be going good right now has no dictation on how it could go in the future. But I would say, and work on the mindset. I didn't have the right mindset. Like I didn't have the skills to combat little Izzy back then, and I would let my mind beat me from time to time, which would cause just spirals, and I would be able to bounce back through hard work and stuff. That's what I always did, bounce back through hard work. But then once that mistake or failure happened, then that spiral would spiral me back down, and then it would be, I'd have to try to climb and fight my way back up. And I've done it so many times in my career. It's like, well, how can I stop that spiral? And I think it's getting around the right people and just trying to get the ego out of the way. Like the ego. I actually had a chance to work with a mentor my rookie year, and he was like, it's $5,000, which is ironic because I paid you a lot more. He's like, it's $5,000 to work with me, and we're gonna work on our mindset, and I'm gonna he was like a hypnosis too. So he was like, I'll hypnotize you to have that confidence at all time and not let kind of failures and stuff kind of like what we do, like kind of combat those thoughts. But I didn't make that investment because mostly I was scared to make it. I had money issues, like, oh, I got to keep my money. And stuff like that. But if I went back, I would have paid that,
gone all in
10 times,
10
gone
times.
all in.
You know what?
Times, what
People miss this. I often use Tom Brady as an example for people that have ambitions in the marketplace, just in the general marketplace, that want to do good in life, is this concept of sort of bringing on someone that can then really help elevate you. And that vested interest in the relationship is meant to do just that. Part of the investment strategy is you have to meet someone where there's a pain point where they're going to respond correctly, meaning $100,000 to Tom Brady, he probably wouldn't feel that. He's just that wealthy. He just earns that much. You maybe $1 million, he'd show up. It's just the way it works. It's the way it is supply and demand, essentially. Mm-hmm. $5,000 to a billionaire, he won't show up. You put $10 million down, he'll show up. And the point in that is this: there's a psychological connection. I learned this from a buddy of mine, Dan Martell, who wrote How to Buy Your Time Back. Incredibly smart guy. And I love being around Dan. I've learned a lot from him. But he said it, and I already figured out, but I didn't have a framework to sort of pair it up. but the transformation starts from the transaction. So the second you put skin in the game, your natural inclination as a person that has any kind of brains is to go get your money back. And so what you do is you squeeze all the juice out. But so many people have such limited mindsets. They'll buy the Gucci belt to look rich, but they won't make the investments to bet on themselves that will catapult them forward. They don't trust themselves. If I gave you 100 grand right now, actually, you don't even need to show the fuck up. I already know what the fuck to do. So most of it is in making the investment yourself. It's a psychological trick. Now, when you get around the right energy, the right person, the right information, you know, you can really make some moves that'll move your life forward. At the end of the day, Andy, I'd hate for you to get through the entire NFL career and never have enjoyed it, and to always been in your head and the seasons come and go. You didn't enjoy it because all those little kids in these stands, you weren't thinking about them. You're only thinking about yourself. And that is the one thing I wanted to make sure that I pounded with you. And it is because you have such a gift, and it far exceeds the value of football. It's funny, I see a genius brand in Andy. You guys are only getting a glimmer of it. I've been around him so much that I know what's deep inside of him. I've read so much of his literature. And I'm like, why does the whole world not feel your message every single day? Why are you not on stage just pouring out this message to the little boy you used to be? You know, and the first thing I challenged him with when we started working together, 2 weeks later, boom, this guy springs in action. I see him with like 100 little boys at a little mini football camp he puts together. It was amazing. And I'm like, dude, tell me that doesn't lighten the soul and the spirit of the warrior competitor who's always looking for the fuel, the edge to fight. Like, you need that chip on the shoulder. What if your new fuel was purpose beyond the aggressive nature of the fuel? Like, what if the new thing you relied on, instead of the dopamine highs and lows of letting the spiral take you down, then you have to rebuild the mountain, that hellish cycle that a lot of competitors go through. What if the new thing that guided you was purpose? And tell me how that could fill the void that oftentimes some of the greatest competitors and the wealthiest people in the world constantly search for and never seem to find.
I mean, that's such a great question, because when I was younger, I rode that. They call it the NFL the roller coaster. You were riding the roller coaster. They say the NFL is a roller coaster, but I would like to it doesn't have to be a roller coaster, but that's how it was. That's how they frame it out to be. It's almost like the normal. It's okay to have the roller coaster ride, but it doesn't have to be like that. And I think it doesn't have to be like that if you find your purpose beyond just playing, and how you're playing can elevate you to other levels. And I'll give another story. Like, my rookie year in the NFL, I didn't get to play until week 9, and we played Thursday night against San Fran, who actually went to the Super Bowl that year. And I had an 88-yard touchdown late in the game, and we almost came back and won. I remember sitting in the locker room after for like 3 hours because I didn't want that feeling to go away. And then, ironically enough, 3 weeks later, I was benched. And then I had all Lil Izzy. Lil Izzy took over. He took over that year. And I sat the rest of the year. So I went from 88-yard touchdown Thursday night to getting benched 3 weeks later, not playing the rest of the year, and just kind of being scared, kind of hiding, just because I was riding that roller coaster and living that life of the highs and the lows instead of. But if I had the mindset I would now, like a failure here and there wouldn't really matter, and my value would be pouring into my teammates and pouring into other things that are a lot more valuable than just scoring an 88-yard touchdown. Like that doesn't even matter. That was 8 seconds of my life. Sure. Like it definitely could inspire a lot of. And how can I use that to inspire other people, and then use the lows too, like to inspire and be an inspiration to others. But like you said, when you make that investment in yourself. I did that camp, but like I made that investment in the Operation Black Site, and that was kind of like a little intro to give me a confidence to do stuff like that. And then making the investment in you kind of gave me even more confidence just to keep putting myself out there, and keep trying to make an impact to others.
Let me tell you something, and I'll say this for the audience too, and this is also a message for you. You know, and man, we're brothers for life, man. Anyone that I connect with, and I have so many people that I'm blessed to have worked with that these are just lifelong relationships. They don't just end here. But the one thing that is should be said is, for me and for you and for everyone that's going to come after you, that's going to invest in you to level up their life. Because The one thing I always promote anyone is that if it's working for you, you got to go give it away to someone else. You have to offer it up. You have to put the framework in. And again, that's where you realize that you become your most dangerous self. That's the greatest stock value of Andy Isabella is the one that's got demand for people that have an opportunity to get the gift that he has. He has this connection to the market where he can give it away. Just his presence can do it. But imagine working with a guy at that level. Like, you know what I'm saying? But so many people, like, their perspective of what they do is in such a tight box. But the greatest leader in a person always does this. But here's the thing that never ends. Till the day I die, in my mind, I will constantly make investments in myself, because every time I do, it's this religious sort of saying yes to things. And again, everything valuable in life has a ticket price. People don't understand that. It has a ticket price until all of a sudden, everywhere you go, it flips and then they pay you. But even then, you keep paying ticket prices. You actually never stop. It's sort of like the connection, almost in a bizarre way, to sort of the dopamine highs and lows of the emotional roller coaster. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like this. We lean on this to refuel the fight in us, and we never stop. Well, there's always someone better than me. There's always someone doing something different. And at the end of the day, those are all investments. Everyone's time is valuable. Every time I make an investment to go to an event, to go support someone, to go to their charity, those are ticket prices, ticket prices, ticket prices. Every time I invest in someone else's cause, that's a ticket price. But it gets me near people that I'm inspired to be near. I pay in every room I want to go. You think that just stops after one? No, I do this for the rest of my life. People don't realize everywhere in life's a ticket price. And once you accept that, here's what you get on the back end. On the back end of every investment you make, you have the pressure to create the ROI. And that's where the gift of all this keeps giving is like the second I do this, I was like, all right, let's go get that money. Like you can instantly create the outcome when there's the pressure of the investment to justify it. I literally I can make decisions along the way that just counterbalance. But the truth is, you just become so valuable. You have so much coming into you that there's no investment in the world you won't make. You don't even think about it anymore. But if I'm just thinking psychologically, if you had to, for everything you give, you get it right back. That's the goal. And then everything else is bonus. It's cherry on top. And the ROI, I've said this many times, for me, with my greatest investment in myself, I just had to transform myself. I gave myself 1 year to look completely different. And I put so much money on me that I had no choice but to burn every bridge in my life. And it forced me against my scariest dragon. So looking at your life and sort of through the lens of that box, what do you say is now you're in the NFL, you have these highs, these lows, this moment of realization that everything that got you there is not what's going to take you to the next level. Tell me what that dragon actually looks like for someone that's playing at the highest levels and really is this close from being a starter every single year in his life, like just millimeters away. The talent's there, but just not quite getting there.
I mean, for me, I think when I started really making investments in myself was my third season in the NFL. And I got to my third season. I had to miss all of camp because there was some COVID complications around when I got COVID, so I had to miss all of camp. But I came back and I played well enough to make the team my third year. But I was only there for a week and a half, so I had basically missed the whole camp. And our last preseason game got canceled. There was a hurricane in New Orleans, so I didn't get to have any film on myself for the preseason. So I get in there, they tell me I made the team, and they're like, well, we're not going to really play you this year because we didn't really see we're going to kind of use you as a reserve. And this is my third year. So this is like the first time kind of football was kind of taken away from me, and it was devastating for me. And I had other stuff in my life. My brother and my sister, and we were all living in this house together, and they all moved back because COVID was over. So I was kind of by myself now in Arizona, and I was just lost. I was like devastated because the one thing that I had all my eggs in this basket was basically it was ironically because a lot of players were cut and gone. I was still on the team. I just didn't have a role, so I didn't feel like I was doing anything. And I knew something needed to change. And there was a guy, our player, he was like a player performance coach, a psychologist, and he held a book study every week. And I read here and there, but I didn't really read. But I knew I needed to do something. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to read some of this book and just go to this book study. I remember going in there to the book study, and I'm sitting there, and then he starts asking me some tough questions. He's like, about how I'm handling everything. I literally could not hold it in. I started tearing up. And I don't think he expected it. And because if a guy just made the team, a second round pick, like, you're still on the team, and here I was tearing up. And luckily, no one was in the room, but a player came in later. But he told me, you know what? Let's meet together once a week. So then he was like, here's a book. Let's read some of the book, and we'll discuss kind of the book. And that was kind of like my beginning of kind of transforming my mindset and kind of investing in myself by just going to see him once a week. And I would literally read a book a week. I wasn't playing at all. I would read a book a week. And I would just learn as much information, invest in myself, and my whole energy started changing because all these books would give me ideas and what I should do. And then I kind of started looking back and like, how did I get this far? How did I win? But now how am I failing? Like, what are the patterns that keep repeating themselves in my life? So I started putting all these things together, and it was a daily process. But by the end of the season, I had only been activated in 2 or 3 games, but you couldn't tell because my whole energy had shifted a little, and I started this journey of kind of developing myself into the person I am today.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, self-mastery. We talked about kind of the concept of rewiring your brain and putting systems in place that you can lean on and rely on throughout the day. Sort of these triggers and these checkpoints and these sort of this morning tone setting that, I've given you a lot of my frameworks that, change over time. I talk about my meditations with you, a lot of these things that I want to work on that I wish I was better at, some ways of being I want to tweak in my personality that it's going to take a lot of trigger work. A lot of it, I realized there's actually science that is now backing it. I think we really went into this, but we were already doing it for this whole time, but really the concept of the scientific approach to rewiring the neural pathways in your brain and how they respond to emotion. This idea, again, for the audience listening in, this is valuable. If you feel a fear, right? Andy fumbled a football, on a kickoff one time. Like, okay, you fumbled, you up, right? Well, this will destroy a person like the old Andy. The old Andy, one flaw, he's done. Mm-hmm. That emotional hell happens, and it becomes a spiral. It's not good. It's not pleasant. It's not fun. Being able to feel all the emotion before there's any action is one of the most powerful ways of being a human can be, because what you're always aware of how you feel before you react. So before you take the helmet off and you throw it into the Gatorade thing, whatever they're called, the bucket, and you look like when the coach sees that, again, you see all the emotional outbursts, these are reactions, right? Sort of the stoic connection to what a real leader looks like when he commits an error or a failure is all based on how you connect sort of the trigger and the response to the brain. Because the truth is most people that we think are great or that have a way of being at the highest levels that we appreciate, I always thought they're born that way. And it's so easy to say temperamentally you must be born that way. But what I have found in getting near some of the greatest minds in the world, greatest athletes in the world, this is my journey that I'm on, is exploring great people. I love this shit. No, all of them had to will this into existence, and it was self-mastery, emotional mastery that did it. So the trigger of feeling a response that I don't like, blood pressure, stress, the stress alone, it creates this problem in our brain. The amygdala fires up. The prefrontal cortex shuts down. That's where logic and vocabulary disappear out of your brain. And the fear responder in the amygdala, that's the flight happens. Flight is where there's an action, a reaction. And that's where guys go wrong. That's where they say something to their wife that is just horrific. You say the worst damn thing, and you didn't mean that, but it came out. Yeah. Like, well, who talks to their wife that you did? Like, that is a response from the amygdala that is illogical. So thinking about this, if you could, again, this is that lesson for the audience that just dig with me here. You feel it. Before you make the reaction, you ask yourself 2 questions. What if this is your system before you decide to punch the wall? Or whatever it looks like for you. Is this logical? And 9 out of 10 times, there is no good reason for you to say that how you're feeling, like you're about to get stoned to death. Oftentimes it feels like that. Fear can feel like that. Could be fear. This is illogical. And the second you put yourself back in the driver's seat of realizing this is illogical, what we could do is make a chess move that's logical. And I cannot tell you how powerful that has been in my life and every person I know. And Andy, I think you might have had one of the most profound connections to some of this stuff. I'd love for you to dig in because this stuff is such juicy, valuable information. And if it can transform a person's life, man, like we're doing our job right now.
Yeah, I love the analogy of the chess game. It's something that resonated with me. It was like
Yep.
in football, there's so many moves that are played against you that you aren't ready for, and you're like, and it could go either two ways. You could let that little voice in your head take you to that place where you're making an illogical error. Like you try, like so I'm always that person where like you beat me, I'm trying to get you back right away. But sometimes that try to get you back right away or try to do too much
Yeah.
causes you to make a mistake. So it's like, all right, how can I pause first? Not even pause, but how can I like quicken that thing where like I can make the best chess move right back? And I'm not making something that's out of anger or out of I got to get you back. And fighters do the same thing. Like they get punched, they try to overextend themselves, they get knocked out, they lose the fight. And I think a lot of my teammates actually is something that you encouraged me to do was kind of I think one of your rules was stand up and say something.
Yeah,
That
right
you
right
liked
here.
saying that.
I got
Stand
it.
up and say something. And that's something that I did in Buffalo's training camp this year. We had
How'd it serve you?
I mean it's powerful. Like when you have that in your mind,
It
it's
changed
like
my life, Doug.
change your life. It's like when that's in your mind, you literally it's like it's just you stand up and say something. Like you just do it, just happens.
Before you dig in
And-
real quick, before you dig in, first response from you and maybe from me, but it seems like an egotistical, odd thing to say. So without the proper context, I think that it can easily get misread, this idea of stand up and say something. So often when you should have a convicting thought, we don't say anything. Like when good men do nothing, evil triumphs. That's like even a more profound way of sort of connecting this dot. But even lower than that, I'll give you the one example that I think I gave you is if you're in a room full of 1,000 people and they ask, all right, we're going to take 3 questions right now. The fact that I had a rule, that's a trigger, I created a trigger out of it, it's a system, to stand up and say something, instantly my hand goes up. And now again, one of the other rules that sort of backs it up is everything I do is with passion and purpose, and it's heart and soul, and there's depth. I'm not frivolous when it comes to these types of rules. And I talked about my grandma's death in front of 1,000 people, right? In a room full of 1,000, they only took 3. It was 2 girls and Eric Rock. I was the first hand that went up because it was a trigger. I didn't want to, but I knew that I'm so scared and so afraid of what people think. I have so many insecurities that if I don't build systems in that make sure that I find a chance to sort of elevate past my own insecurities, then I always will be trapped by them. That single thing that I said had Erwin McManus, which is a famous pastor, one of the greatest minds out there. He pulled me off to the side after this thing, had a whole talk where I first became friends with Erwin. Ed Milet was on the same stage that day, and the first thing I said is, my name's Eric Rock, I'm from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, that's where I'm from. All of a sudden, Ed sees me, he knows me. This is before he knew me, but this is actually the first place he ever connected with me. But the point is I just put myself past 1,000 people with a simple rule, and then I left half the room crying. That was where I met Jessie Lee, when a person became my greatest friend who passed away from cancer, or battled cancer. She lost, she's in heaven now, but she came up to me with tears streaming down her face, and she said, what you said was so beautiful. Listen, you have depth, I have depth, everyone's got depth. If you don't create rules to overcome your insecurities, some triggers and systems to overcome where you fail in life, then you will continue to fail to the things that are just redundant that you've never taken control over. My big problem was I was so afraid of what people thought, of this mic, of this cameras, of this light. So afraid of it. Like, why the am I doing this? Well, it's because it's my biggest dragon. I had to, or I was going to die, always sort of being trapped to probably where my greatest purpose lied, because I have so much depth. So again, now I've framed it, I'm back to you, but I saw all that in you. You're one of the few guys that I've ever met that I kind of saw the same stuff in that I am when I was younger.
Yeah, I had that. I mean, I've had that dragon like for the first 4.5 years of my NFL career, sitting in the meetings, coach asks a question, the whole room silent. I have something really great to say, but I'm just frozen. I have no trigger that just says raise your hand or stand up and say something. And so that when that trigger that I kind of embodied from kind of what you said and the rules that you have in your life, kind of try to embody some stuff that you do. This preseason with the Bills, I was able to work with our team psychologist, and we ran a group called Mental Edge. And every week I would stand up and pour into the group, just pour in and bleed. And I would talk about the chess game and try to help my teammates. And it's funny that this comes up because our team psychologist just texted me on Wednesday or 2 days ago saying 2 of the players don't come to Mental Edge anymore because you're not there.
Wow.
Speaking. And he's like, you should. And she asked me to reach out to the 2 guys and tell them to come back. And my advice to those guys would be like, they're younger guys. I was like, you guys have a lot of depth and a lot of stuff that you guys can look into and pour into that group. And that's what's going to ultimately be as you said, be your most valuable asset as a player. And I think a lot of younger players miss that, is they're too stuck in what they want and kind of what's going on in their life to realize that there's a lot more potential in them as a player and the longevity of their career as being a leader and pouring into others. And I see a lot of careers get cut short because they don't dive into that realm of things. They're too kind of obsessed with what they got going on. And I've seen also players that play in 8, 9, 10 years that aren't really that talented, aren't that even that good. But the coaches, they've built relationships with certain coaches. There we go. They're a leader in the locker room. They pick people up.
There we go.
And they play 8, 9 years in the NFL just off that. I mean, it's just literally them being courageous enough to putting their ego aside and trying to just find a way to be valuable. That's almost what it is. Like, even if you're not playing on the field, how can I be valuable? Like, how can I add value here? Like, what can I do? Like, if you start trying to be present and really look instead of, because when we're so consumed with ourselves, I feel like when I was younger, I was so consumed with myself, I didn't see these opportunities around me. But then when I started learning to be present and kind of let the ego go aside and kind of start doing things with intention, then I start seeing all these opportunities where I can add value and pour into other people. And it's not because like I'm like doing this. I'm not doing this because like it's like I'm doing this. I'm gonna get paid more. I'm doing it because I really enjoy doing it. It's always in me. And it's something and it helps the team win. It helps the team. It helps you build connections with others. It helps everyone around you get better. And I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Those are the best teams I've been on, are the teams that are well connected and everyone's trying to lift each other up.
I got a bunch of random questions that I want to rip through, but I want to keep on this for a hot second here. I think with maybe the last section of our time, I'm just going to rip through just a bunch of random topics and just see how you respond to them. But for now, let me end this with this part. You said something that was kind of interesting, and we've talked about this before, this idea that there's a game within the game being played. And, some people call that politics. Being aware of it is really, really important for people that, have an eye and they're smart and, they're the path of least resistance oftentimes is building a blueprint around awareness. And a lot of people just aren't aware and they're stuck in their own emotions and they're not opening their eyes. And again, if you want to be your greatest self, sometimes you got to really look at, well, why did it work for that guy and that guy, but, not me? And it's like, well, look what that guy does, man. You know what I mean? And so much of everything in life is relationships. If you're a hermit, like if you're an introvert by trade, it is very hard to play the game that the person who's not is playing. You have different rules to how you operate your lives. It doesn't mean it's always right, but in most cases, you've got to learn how to put yourself out there. And you have to expose yourself to the barbarians is the way I describe it. And it does feel like you're going to get stoned to death sometimes. It's a psychological way that I like to describe the feeling of when the fear hits you and you're on a stage in front of a bunch of people, spotlight's on you, and your mouth goes dry, and the butterflies hit, and your heart starts fluttering, and those nerves hit, and the adrenaline starts coursing through your veins. Like that feeling is arming your body to get prepared to get stoned to death. In ancient times, going back to the early days of man, like it took a lot of courage to put yourself in a position of moral authority, to put yourself in a position of a leader. Because if the masses don't like what you're saying, it's very easy just to kill you. In barbaric times, Viking times, man, you got to be careful who you offend. They could whack you. So it's in our instinct, I think, beyond just our environment of our childhood programming. I think it actually goes deeper into our biology to just stay small in life. But we're always trying to figure out in the modern era how to not be small. But we have these sort of biological connections that keep us small. So what we've done with Andy and what I've done myself and anyone I work with is we reprogram those responses so that even if I feel it still, I know how to handle it. I move forward anyway, because everything's illogical. And the second you can master sort of the science of rewiring and then reworking the adrenaline, it becomes a drug. But you've got to get through the phase where it wants you to run this way. You got to get it to want you to run that way. You have to flip the script. Again, there's so much logic that goes into this, and why this is applicable for every sport, every athlete, it doesn't matter, every business person, every person who's trying to do anything better in life. It always comes down to emotions. We talk a lot about stoicism. Marcus Aurelius, some of the greatest philosophers in the world, talking about death. We know, Andy, that time is ticking, and that isn't something that scares us. In fact, not only does it just bring us closer to God and be more presence, which is the greater gift, but I would argue that when leveraged correctly, memento mori, death is in everything. It makes me care more, and it makes me enjoy things more. It makes me hug tighter, love harder, and it puts sort of rules that don't matter or some of the politics don't matter off the table, and I can go right for where the real money's at. And often, you know what it is? And you said it last week. Just sitting with the coach, asking about his childhood when he had a spare moment, knowing how busy he is. But you also have the depth to know the timing. You know, if you can see if he's stressed, you're smart enough to read the room. You got to read the room. Like, see, again, a little bit of game being played, but like you spotted it, you saw the opportunity, you sat, you talked. Man, this is the stuff that I love, man, is to be able to teach and then to watch someone actually go out and perform and then get feedback. Well, is it working? Like, are you happier? Did time slow down? Are you more fulfilled? Hey, even though it's not going the way you want right now, do you like who you are as a person? Andy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from when I started working with you to now, I've seen the change in myself already. Just it was building up, but this kind of even accelerated even more, where I'm able to just move through life. Like, it's like whatever happened, I'm just flowing. Like, nothing's bothering me. Like, I could get cut. All right, next thing. I go to the meeting, get to know him and the coach.
Yeah.
And I only there for like 4 days. And when I got cut, he calls me and has a 10-minute conversation. Like, no coach does that.
Was this Tomlin?
No, I was the wide receiver coach.
Okay.
So, but usually you get cut and they don't know. No one reach unless you reach out to them. They're not reaching out. It was just kind of messed up.
Well, that says a lot.
They don't reach out to you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just that little thing of just going there in the morning and just being there, getting to know them, and no agenda. I didn't have agenda. I was just going there trying to learn some of the plays and
there it is.
Just be around the thing. And then I literally wouldn't really converse with him unless he would kind of bring something up to me or conversate with me. So, I mean, it goes a long way. Who knows? He told me, he's like, well, you'll be the first person I call back. So who knows? I mean, I'm not saying that that's going to be, it's true. There's people lie, people say things, it doesn't work out, but somehow I made a connection with him where he probably going to remember me down the road.
Well, there you said something important. You said no agenda. This is the part I really want to land. I'm glad you said that. Is that there is no agenda. This is the way we do life forever. Once we become it and we realize that this is a better version of us, this stays true until we find even a better version, until the day we die. We stick with it. It's a way of being. It's how we enter every room, not just some rooms. We got to enter every room this way. That's the standard that we're going to uphold to these lessons that we learn along the way. And at the end of the day, if you're like this everywhere in life and you sort of manage the clock, manage your time, manage your calendar, every way of being with intentionality and sort of focused intentionality, even better way to put this together, you really can get what you want out of life. And it so far exceeds the value of skill. You are now tapping into something that is what the greatest people in the world ideally are going to have to tap into to get to that greater level. The worst is when you see someone with so much damn talent and so much obsession for their craft. They love it. They're the best at what they do, but they're miserable inside. They're cheating on their wives. They're doing all these bad things. They have all these sort of like problems because their house isn't in order. But they've got millions and millions of dollars pouring in from every endorsement, every contract that they've ever signed just keeps getting crazier and crazier. Like, we're talking about like the best now, but when you're dealing with sort of the range of people in the NFL, you got young testosterone, muscle-bound jacks that are 19 years old, coming out of college, just amazing athletes, huge contracts now these days. You got veterans that have been there, done that. They've done it all, baby, and they are rich men, and they're still playing in the league. You got the guys that retire that are still around the game. You've been able to be around everyone. Remember that movie Any Given Sunday where they're doing blow off the chick's butt like in the bathroom?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that famous scene where he's on the toilet and there's, I think a lot of people have this idea that in the NFL with all these just wild, just testosterone driven, just animals, that there's a lot of partying, there's a lot of drugs, there's a lot of drinking, and again, I know there's got to be some conversation here that is worthwhile having. Because when you start getting around people that, they snap and 100 girls are ready there to take their pants off. Think about it. When you start getting around people that drive Bentleys and Ferraris and, have 10 of them, and all they have to do every day is catch a football. Can you imagine? Like, that's a little kid's dream, the sort of manufactured, but then what ends up happening is that person gets jaded. I don't know if there's, how that part of the sport is talked about from the person that's actually in it, from your perspective or look. I'm curious if you'd want to talk about sort of like the reality between the person you want to be that is winning at the highest levels in the NFL versus the person that you see that is winning at the highest levels in the NFL that is someone that it's hard for you to respect because of the way they treat people, the way they treat their family, their spouses, their kids, whatever the story is, the way you see them act on the road behind their people's back that they claim to love. I don't know, maybe speak to this, how they take care of themselves. Because at the end of the day, I know how strict you are with alcohol, with your diet, with your lifestyle, with God. And it's like you are just this rare commodity, it seems like, based on what you feel. Again, from the social media world, a lot of people don't have access to the truth of behind the scenes of in the locker room to how these players operate. But what would you say to this broad, big conversation here?
I think those players ended up get found out eventually, or they got a hole inside of them that eventually bursts. Is too big for them to hide anymore. I think everyone there's at a time everyone's running a racket sometimes. When I was so afraid to fail and so afraid for people to find out like who I really was when I was younger.
Wow.
Like, oh, I'm just this guy from UMass. Like,
I'm nobody.
Somehow I was a second round pick. Like people are going to find out about me eventually. So I had a big play. If I have a big play, and it's like, man, I have to repeat it again because I need to feel worthy again. So I would get home and like I would just obsess about just football all day, that my relationships outside of football were horrible because I couldn't let it go. I couldn't let football go. I brought football home with me. And I think a lot of players sometimes can struggle with that and not be present in other areas of their life. And then those areas fall apart. I see. And I've had that. That was like, I had a lot of things fall apart my third season in the NFL, and it kind of woke me up. It was like a wake up call, but if I kind of was always truthful and honest and be like, yeah, I don't got it all together. I'm barely hanging on sometimes, like trying to figure it out. I'm always trying to figure it out. Like, it's not just, just cause I made it to the NFL doesn't mean I figured it out. In a sense, I'm running almost more of a racket of trying to be like, oh, I'm this amazing person that had all this talent. Like, no, I'm trying to figure it out. And I go through the same struggles. I think being honest about it and being open about it and surrounding your people that you could talk to about it, it will help you kind of overcome all those kind of things, and it will kind of keep you away from those things that you don't want to be doing, whatever, like kind of some of the stuff you say that just takes you away from your craft and doesn't make you the person that probably you want to be, or the person that you could become on the field as well.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense what you said. That sort of reflection on the reality. You have nothing in common with normal people because you're so far inside the game in your head that, you won't even allow yourself to enjoy life, you know what I mean, in a sense. And that's where, bad habits might pop in, bad personal decisions are going to pop in. This is the actual trigger that is more common in the NFL. I'm asking in a sense of where someone might end up, doing drinking and partying and doing the drugs. And then maybe that sort of hole that you described that's in a person, maybe once it's there, people don't heal it. And even if they end up getting the big contract, they get their bag, they get that deal that finally is there and they finally get paid, like maybe that hole only grows inside of them. You see a lot of these big athletes is they have all these entourage of people around. Who are all these people? It's crazy to me. Who are all you people? Like I literally go solo everywhere. I go with Colton if I travel. Like I'm a one. I can't even imagine having that many leeches sucking the life out of me everywhere I go. I don't need bodyguards. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't know what all this is.
My third year in the NFL, I had my best friend out in Arizona with me. I had like a house with like 6, like basically a little entourage, and whoever was welcome in the house was like anyone. We had the most random people staying in this house in Arizona.
These are kids, man. That's why y'all are
kids. I didn't know better.
That's what children do.
I imagine we were just, but everything fell apart. Like it didn't.
It never lasts.
Like it's like literally we would literally watch the freaking show Entourage.
I love that show.
I mean, that's my boy. I'm like, that's my boy Turtle. Like,
Turtle.
Whatever. Like,
I think what the
fuck are we doing? Like,
when you're young,
I surrounded myself. You don't know better.
That is like the dream when you're young. You're right, but it's so far from I think where you really are going to find peace and true happiness, true fulfillment, and true love by having this stable foundation where I think you can really thrive in life. And you got to get older to get there. But, it's just interesting, the sort of the connection. You guys are on the road all year. You step into arena, you have tens of thousands. In some cases, I mean, you could go to a stadium that Michigan holds 100,000 people. You would fill that stadium. You must feel like a gladiator when you walk onto a field and you feel that kind of energy just roaring, and you're the man in the arena on the field. That kind of ego boost and connection to maybe even a false confidence. I wonder, do you think it destroys a lot of people that don't know how to handle that sort of pressure and fame? I mean, from your perspective, sort of looking at people that have the most light on them, like, I guess the thing I'm trying to get into, the reality is this, is like we all want to get there, right? Everyone, little boy, dreams about it. But is it what it's all cracked up to be? Are these people really happy in most cases?
Not all the time. And it honestly, the spotlight broke me a couple times. I mean, I went from UMass, no one knowing me, to having a big game versus the Georgia Bulldogs my senior year. And then they're like, well, now you might be a second-round pick all of a sudden. And I didn't know how to handle that kind of spotlight. And I struggled we had a Senior Bowl that I struggled in, but I played well in the game. And then I did a little well at the combine. So I was drafted in the second round. And now you can't hide. The spotlight's not like,
you're right.
I know you say when you win at a big level, when you start winning at a big level, you can't hide from the spotlight. It's on you all the time.
Sure.
And I struggle with that. And I didn't surround myself probably with the right people. I didn't know better. But you don't know, And I thought I could do it by myself. I could just work harder. Or when that spotlight was really shining on me is when I would fold, because I was too worried about making a mistake, because I was too worried about what this person, that person is going to say, or they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. Like, what does that even mean? But that's what the thoughts are in my head that were going on.
I think every great man I've ever known can actually speak to that if they find out the truth about me. I mean, it's exactly what my story was and is, and it's same with Ed Milet, who's my mentor. The same exact words came out of his mouth, when he was coming up in the whole game. And but it's part of the reality is that at some point, most people that I admire, they were nothing at some point. And so that psychological connection from making the decision to turn yourself from nothing to something, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of gall. And that's where you'll be a little bit tripped up on this until you find a way to sort of overcome the emotions and the imposter thoughts and create systems to solve it. Everyone's got to go through the process, I'm convinced. But at the end of the day, and even rich kids, like I was saying this the other day, like, I would hate to be a trust fund baby. Like, oh my God, that'd be terrible. Like, you're missing out on one of the greatest gifts in the world, and that is like the struggle, like the human experience. If you don't have to sort of struggle to figure out how to like put gas in a car, or you're putting change together to get Taco Bell, like, dude, if you haven't lived that life because daddy and mommy's over there, like, I actually feel sorry for you. Like, I'm not going to talk bad about you. I'm not going to make fun of you. I feel sorry for you, man. Like, that's a bummer. Because we know where the real gifts in life come from, where merit is built and character is built. It doesn't mean a trust fund baby can't be an amazing person that does good with the world. Oftentimes, though, they don't connect to the emotions that me and you are learning to work through. They sort of bypass a lot of the stuff that they didn't have to struggle through, and that's like such a detriment to their greatest self in many cases. But at the end of the day, I think this conversation and the depth that might pour out of it for an audience is being able to sort of understand that here's kind of an inside look at someone who's 6 years in a league where there's more demand and more eyeballs, and it's such a sexy industry for You know, it's like it's so glamorized. There's so much of this, and you know, beneath the cover of the whole thing, it's the same emotions, it's the same struggles, it's the same battles. It's you know, there's just so much there. But you said something again. I was trying to circle back to. I kind of weave these thoughts in and out, but. You said if your environment's not right, especially when the spotlight's on you, they get the wrong people around them as they're you know, coming up. And one of the things I promote is if I see a star in you, I want you to feel the obligation of making sure you exploit it to the max. I want you to get so powerful, Andy, at every level. I want Colton over here to get powerful because we're in a world where people have power and they use that power for evil. So we need superheroes to go and use their influence and power for good. So that's why I promote it. I see good in a man, but the trick is how do you not lose sight and how do you keep character and groundedness along your journey of fame and success, right? My theory, I mentioned it to you earlier, is like, okay, I look at a guy that I admire who's maybe where I think I could go or close to it, or maybe I'll get there, maybe I'll pass him. But as far as like impact goes or influence in a lane that I want, Tim Tebow, he was, at least when I was near him and I had a chance to interact with him, it was cool because I've always been a fan of him since he was at Florida. I love that he kneeled, even when the media made fun of him, even when they all talked about him for kneeling for God in the end zone. That's what really made him stand out when I was younger, is I was like, man, I couldn't stand how the media would talk about the guy. So he had conviction, right? Well, now you meet him all these years later after sports. And he guys just gets, he gets paid $200,000 every time he steps on a stage, and he could be on a stage every single day of the year if he wanted. He's an earner still, maybe more now than ever. His brand is huge. He helps children all around the world. I've been to his proms before for children that are disabled. He's one of the most magical people from a distance. Well, then you get near the man, and it's like, well, I hope he really is a hero the way he looks like. And sure enough, like his way of being, his energy, his care, the frequency of emits, that's exactly how I want to be when I get to his level. That is what every man should sort of consider as they're rising up the stock value and sort of chain of demand in the world, is like, well, who do you sort of look at as someone that you admire? I want to be like that, and I'm going to do it my way. But now I know I can get there, and I can do it with class and grace and care, and I can do it as such a stand-up human, and like, that kind of star power with that kind of character and sort of godliness sort of built into everything he does, that connection to children that are suffering and purpose. Like, that's the kind of leader I want to be at the highest damn level. I want to emit that kind of frequency, that kind of radiation. I want to give that kind of. So this is my gift, is to you and this whole audience, to say, well, like, who's the person you're going to model as a way of being as you rise up the food chain and really exploit your greatest talents. I love challenging people with that, but that's a great example for me. Ed's a no-brainer for me. Who would be someone of you, of all the people you've ever worked with, all the coaches you've ever had, just a way of being? Maybe it's an athlete where their persona and that energy that they'll met is something that you would really strive to be yourself at the highest level, but with your own sort of authentic, Andy Isabella way.
I would say probably Coach Harbaugh when I was in Baltimore, someone that I looked up to.
Great guy.
And someone that I was like, man, the way this guy carries himself each and every day. And I kind of got the inside information of kind of like how he operated everywhere. And he was a head coach, but he was kind of hands off of all the kind of operations that went on. But he made sure everyone in the building was seen. He made sure everyone felt like they were important, like everyone had a job. He would even do practice squad player of the week. Like, he would do these little things to make sure everyone felt like they were a part of that mission of winning that Super Bowl. And it was a person that I was like, wow, this is how you're supposed to do it. And he's doing it. And you could just tell it was all authentic. It was no fake about it. He was that person, and everyone respected him. He wanted everyone to feel like they were a part of something greater, I guess, and they're a part of this goal of winning that Super Bowl, no matter what their role was. And we talked about that, how Mike Tomlin said, don't never minimize your role, whatever it is. Right. And he made sure people didn't do that. And someone that I was like, wow, that's someone that I look up to and that I would want to be like one day.
These are legends, man. These are people that are doing things at such high levels too. But it's cool that their way of being is something that you, being close to them, can sort of mimic. And that's one of the gifts of being in your position, is you get to choose who you can model off of. It kind of gives you it's like osmosis. It's something you can't be taught, but when you're near it, if you're near it enough, you slowly become it. So again, everyone's job out there should be to go get near people that they want to get osmosis from. But again, usually there's ticket prices there. There's sacrifice involved. There's discipline involved. Out of all the players you've ever played with, who's one of the best players that you would ever say, just the rawest best player in the NFL you've ever played with, you ever been near?
In talent-wise?
Yeah. We'll start with talent. Yeah.
Well, obviously, I play with Larry Fitzgerald, so I mean that's a no-brainer. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, and
when you go
he did things the right way too.
What does it look like? You're toe-to-toe with in that receiver slot with Larry Fitzgerald. How far do you got to climb to sort of do the things that he does, or is it a game of inches there?
Well, you know what? He lifts everyone up because he holds himself to that high standard with everything he does and his work ethic. And it kind of makes, like, when you're around that energy, it lifts you up instead of people that are not around that energy. It makes you kind of like, what should I do? But he was the leader of the room, and he did everything for his body, his work ethic. And it was like, all right, if I want to be here, I better get on that. I better do these things and get on that level. And it's just, like you said, just being around people like that, it inspires you and shows you where you could take it if you're disciplined in what you do.
Yeah, the job is now I become it so that I can emit that same oxygen in the room when I walk in, right? Who's the fiercest player you've ever had? The one you're most scared to go against? The one that free safety that if you go near him, like, you could feel that presence of hell coming your way?
Man, I don't think I'll ever feared anyone, but there's definitely players where you're like, damn, I gotta go block this guy.
There's guys that light people up for sure.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know the names, but you could kind of just know the numbers of like teams around. Like, man, this guy is huge. Like, I hope I don't have to see this guy.
Kill
like,
me, yeah.
He's running, and he's not caring about his body. Like, you like watch my film, just run full speed and run over someone. You're like, this guy's tapped. Like, he's crazy. Like, you better buckle your chin strap when you go against this guy.
When I was a kid, man, I was imagining it was Steve Atwater that I was going up against, man, because I was a receiver guy. Actually, quarterback and receiver is a youngster. I had a great arm, even though I was small, so I was too small to be a real quarterback. I throw ball better than anybody. I just had a natural gift of a right arm, but I was a Broncos guy, and Steve Atwater was that safety, man, that like I was imagining like shooting him, watching him fall to the floor. I always had these like games in my head as a child. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, bases loaded, Eric Rock up to bat. Wow, crowd goes nuts. Or it's like 2 seconds left on the clock. Eric Rock's the ball. Jordan's covering him. Like every little boy in the world dreams that, right?
That's what I did when I was little. I'd be in the front yard with a football, throwing it to myself, imagining that somebody was Patrick Peterson or someone was covering me. Like,
little boys, we dream, man. Little boys dream, man. And at some point, you get older and you lose the dream, and that's something I like to literally promote in another person, man. But we've talked so much. There's so much I could talk about with you. I remember talking last week. Was it last week? A couple weeks ago about James Harrison and told a story about James Harrison that I think Tomlin told you guys in the room that I thought was really powerful. I can't remember what the connection was. I just remember it was a powerful thread. James Harrison, man. Shout out to James Harrison on our podcast here. You want to talk about work ethic, bro. Maybe you could expand upon that real quick as a testimony to what hard work actually looks like.
Yeah, that's what Tomlin was trying to get, I guess, his point across the players in the room was living that. He called it living that life. Like, how are you going to live that life? And he said James Harrison lived that life of he called it an A player. Like, and an A player was someone that was just always prepared. He said they would put 8 pounds in a 5-pound suitcase. That's what he would tell. That's what he told the room. He had all his tools ready, and he said James Harrison would get there early in the morning. Yeah. And go over all the plays. And he kind of was joking around saying, he had to do that because he didn't know the plays. But he said he made sure he put himself in a position where he was ready and prepared for whatever opportunity presented itself and kind of make the irregular regular, he would say. And he's like, what is it going to be? Who's going to be that A player? Who's going to step up on? They were playing. It was a Sunday night game. They were playing against or Monday night game. They were playing forget who they were playing, but they ended up winning the game. And his main point that Saturday morning before he went out to practice, it was who's going to be that A player, who's going to make the regular, who's going to show up a little early and do a little extra work, and who's going to take this Friday and be intentional about it and find a way to get better. So when that game comes on Monday night, they show the world what they've been doing.
I love this stuff. I always coach in my entrepreneurs or my CEOs, founders, like you guys trying to build company. Culture is a huge talking point, and when we're working with business guys, when it comes to sort of the coaching, business coaching, consulting. And one of the things that is big, even if I'm working with a company, if I'm going in and I'm working with a team of people, a management team, one of the first big connections we make here is how do we glue this management team in with culture. We start with mission. We always put a mission on the table, make that mission sort of the thing that the team sort of either re-energizes or they come up with it together. And a lot of times in that process, you can sort of see where a lot of the dead weight is. If you're really looking now, you can actually clean it up, get rid of the cancer, and then you start gelling with the culture. You build culture. I have another young client. I'd love to introduce him to him, man. He's building something just insane. I'm telling you, man, it's even hard to describe, but he had 19,000 18, 19, and 20-year-olds apply to work for him last year. 19,000. One kid, 24 years old. His secret to life is he's building culture that is so intoxicating for kids to want to come work for. They're dying to work for him. They all make a of money, but I'm watching what he's doing, and I'm always trying to apply these lessons and give value where it needs to be given, put the right pieces in the right place, tell the right story, make sure I connect the right message to the right audience. And in the whole thing, when it really comes down to it, I've always imagined that, and again, a lot of this is me having to sort of get it, and try to make it my own in a sense without actually being there originally, is trying to think of like Bill Belichick. Like if I could run and I could get you to run or think about your business like Bill Belichick thinks about his Patriots. Like if you can, most entrepreneurs are so half-assed in how they build culture and how they, not all, but most are, I gotta be honest. But if you ran your company like a professional sports organization, oh man, you guys would have better results. And so I always bridge the sports connection to the business world. I think it's so relatable in how you build people up, you build culture, how you teach, how you the leader in the room, sort of how to respond, how to identify the leaders in the room and like make sure that their role is felt and there's all the right amount of pressure, just all this stuff that goes along with how an NFL team demands excellence of their people. This is what I see this young guy, Adam, doing in ways that are hard to describe, but this is so, I think, such an important conversation also. It's maybe a little psychological bling for someone that's listening. I was thinking about our listener, but you're around all these great coaches, all these great people, all these great players. Do you have, I'll frame it like this. I heard a sports analogy or like a lesson one time. It was kind of secret, like meaning like they said, don't record this, don't say this. I won't say where I was in respect, but I think I could say the lesson, and I thought it really meant a lot. I apply it to a lot of places in life. It's this idea of, it's the fourth quarter, right? Everyone's tired. It's been a dogfight. Everyone's beat up. They've been given 110%. They're sweating. They're bleeding. The blood's trickling down your calf. And that offensive line is in the huddle, and they turn around, and they're going up to that defense. It's the end of the game. Everything's on the line. And everyone's out of breath. Guys are holding their thing. And when they look at that defense, everyone is standing firm, straight, tall. No one's hunched over. Doesn't even look like they're breathing hard. It's that idea of never letting them see you sweat. Yeah. Do not ever and so the rule is you can never put your hands on your knees to take a breath. If you're going to breathe, you're going to stand straight up and nobody's going to know you're dying inside. It's this idea of like psychologically destroying your enemy by never letting them see you sweat. I just was a powerful sort of story, even though it was small. I've heard a lot of these types of things over the years in the sports world, was this slight edge that you'll get over the people that you're going to now break down in that moment. Like, why is he not breathing like I am? He should be. Like, I'm actually in better shape than him in some cases. But it's this psychological sort of switch that may be a little different in the way this team's coached versus this one, and that offensive line versus that defensive line. They're both dying, but this one, it's so disciplined in their training to never let them see you sweat. I don't know why some of these things I've heard of the years, it becomes so powerful in how I teach, how I give, how I adopt in real time and then give it back in real time when I realize it works. But with you, you've been around so much great coaching. Is there some frameworks that have been super effective that are like life hacks about really how to have the psychological advantage. I mean, that was a prime example, but something that you can go back to in all your career that's just landed with you as like a way of being that could help a lot of people listening.
Yeah, I think when I was in the summer program with Coach Harbaugh, he would actually always have a little message for the team. And one of his messages was growth versus a fixed mindset. And that kind of opened my mind up to a thing where, like, just because where I'm at right now or just because what happened in the past happened doesn't determine where I could go or where I could take it. And it's almost like an advantage that, like, no matter if you maybe get a win right now against me, I'm coming back tenfold, or I'm going to keep learning and finding a new way, a new strategy to try to get a win, to try to beat you. And it's always having that. It's like you always have that faith. It helps you keep that faith. Like you always have faith that no matter what's going on, no matter the losses you have, you could always come back and be a better version of yourself and find that next win or that more purpose in your life.
I was going to ask you a couple more questions. I'm looking at our time here. Man, I wish I can go. If I open up the next topic, it'll go too long. I don't want to go way past our time here and make this like a crazy long podcast. But I remember you telling me about Coach McDermott and like what a profound effect he had in your life. And how old were you when you were in the presence of Coach McDermott?
So I was 26 years old, I think, when I first met Coach McDermott, and he kind of resonated with me because I do my business, I guess, I always had a standard how I do things. I would get there early in the morning and have a little routine. And he was I think he went to a military school, I want to say. I hope I'm getting that right. Maybe Army or some school in Virginia that was a military-based school. So he was big on routine, and he always believed that routine was something that could help you get to the next level. And he was kind of amazed that I had this kind of routine, and I did these kind of little quirky things. Like I had my own like kind of Redmond sea salt that I would bring to the lunch table, and he would always ask me would ask me all these. So I would get there early, and he would usually be there early eating breakfast. So then he would sometimes come and sit next to me and just kind of like poke at me and kind of just trying to get stuff out of me. And he would kind of say like, well, you're kind of very similar to how I am. I see a lot of myself in you and how you carry yourself and stuff. And I could just see in himself like the journey that he's been on, and kind of just see all the losses and stuff he took to be the coach he is and the way he carries himself. And I sometimes come off as a very serious person, but he's even probably more serious, but he also has that soft side and it's like a humility of knowing how much kind of losses he took to get where he's at, and how much he he appreciates every single moment he has.
Yeah.
In that building, and that's very admirable to see and kind of embody that, appreciating every moment. And I kind of embodied that in my time in Buffalo. Is whether I was playing on the practice squad, I was trying to add value everywhere I was, and I was appreciating and present in every single moment. And that's something that he kind of preaches is being present, and the presence of just being there and appreciating and finding ways to add value is something that he's big on. It's something that I can carry throughout my life.
Yeah, I know. I remember having a profound effect. I remember the salt story. You bring your own salt. Like, who does that? It's almost like.
Yeah.
But one thing that is carrying through in everything we're talking about, and always, again, making sure the audience, all y'all hear me out here, especially for people that their dream didn't manifest. They lost their identity. I lost my identity of a baseball player after 2 back-to-back surgeries that ended my career and then put me on Oxycontin, that became like the most horrific addiction in the world that I secretly hid from everyone that knew me. Once the identity's gone, it's tricky. It's hard. Sometimes you never get it back. You just kind of, live a life of quiet desperation, as Joe Rogan always likes to say, that men are just dying. One thing I keep hearing in all that we talked about is we have these people that we keep going back to: McDermott, Tomlin, Harbaugh, this player, this story, this lesson. And in every one of them, you can make a link to a lesson or a way of being or an energy that you convert it, right? What's sad to me is if you look around the landscape of America, and if you were going to go tap 100 people, random people on the shoulder, I'll just say Disneyland. It's I've said that before. It's a random place where there's all sorts of people. There's people that have saved up for 2 years to bring their family there. There's people that, they have a lot of money that are there. So it's just an eclectic mix of like the people in America that are probably good do-gooders, not in all cases, but people that are do-gooders. I don't know. It's weird. But if you tap 100 of them on the shoulder and ask them some of these like profound questions of like, well, what's your mission in your life? What's your purpose? Or even something simpler like when we're talking about is like, walk me through all the people that have influenced your life, or walk me through the greatest people you've ever met, or who was your greatest coaches or mentor or teachers. It's funny, man. It's like when you're around people that are high achievers, all it really is talking about the stories of the people that sort of gave you the gifts of where you're at. I've heard everywhere I go. I always get shout outs from it. Tony Robbins, he talks about this guy that gave this to him, and then blah, 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 blah. And there's a certain class of people that I think are type of person that understands the value in this. And then there's the rest that sort of most of the people, I would agree, in most life are trapped by their circumstances. They're trapped by their natural environment. And so if you're going to speak to sort of someone right now who's stuck, because I hear it every day, it's everywhere. We can look at the numbers. I mean, the numbers don't lie. 2/3 of Americans right now couldn't come up with $1,000 to save their life. These statistics, man, they can keep going, and they're horrific. Gen Zers right now think they'll never be able to afford a home. 60% of them. I mean, that's who teaches these people? There's so much struggle in the world. Depression, record high. Suicide, record high. Drug addiction, record high. In teenage girls. How is that a record high? So you see this, right? And here we are trying to fight, trying to give you the gifts. And the whole thing is coming back to who you're around, who's your environment, who you striving to be like. And at the end of the day, man, like a lot of people they are suffering silent. Men suffering silent. What would be the one thing you would tell these people to sort of get out of the environment, get away from something that is keeping them stuck, keeping their emotions on haywire? Like, how do you, as a leader, Andy, knowing that you have all these incredible relationships that you can lean back on? Like, dude, you have such a bandwidth of strength behind you because of who's coached you. Most people don't have that, is my point. Most people, man, their hero is a person that never made more than $30,000 and it was their third grade teacher. Doesn't mean that person's not a hero, by the way. But the point is like these people aren't reaching for people oftentimes in life that are doing the things that they want to do with their life.
I think it's taking time to really sit there and be quiet with yourself. And when I was younger, my mom took me to church every week, and it was like an hour to sit there and kind of with my thoughts and see where I want to do and see what I can do or what opportunities are available. And it was like an hour of quiet just to like figure out. And that hour of church, I would plan so much stuff. Like I wouldn't listen to a single word that was probably said in the church, but it was an hour to sit there and my mom would take me to, and I would be able to think about all these things, all these plans, how to plan this, just start trying different things and seeing what works, what doesn't, and just trying to put myself in uncomfortable situations. And so I think it's like just sitting there and figuring out maybe like a plan of what to do and have a purpose behind that plan. What's the bigger purpose? What do you want to do with your life? And then developing a plan for that purpose. And if you have that plan backed by that definite purpose, then that could take you somewhere where you maybe you never even imagined, somewhere even better. I mean, I always had a plan to make it to the NFL as like an undrafted guy. Like I would be like, I just want an undrafted opportunity. But because I kind of made these plans, I got a second round pick, something that I had never even dreamed of, but something better because I had a purpose behind what I was doing, and I had always made plans. And they're fluid. Like some of my plans I had to throw out after a day, but I kept making plans and had this purpose of making it to NFL. And my purpose then was really just to make money and stuff like that. But now it's obviously grown to different things, and so the purpose changes along the way, I have to say. But I would say making plans and always trying to grow, always trying to put yourself in new situations. Like just because my football career maybe not be going this type of way, I'm still going to try to connect with Eric. I'm still going to try to go to Operation Blacklight just to see that maybe something I'll learn there, some little nugget that could help me get to some part of life that maybe I'll never imagine that I could get to, or meet someone that can maybe has a question that maybe changes my perspective on my life. But you never know if you don't open yourself up to that possibility, and you get so stuck in the familiar of life, and then you just start repeating unconsciously these habits that you have. And it's being open to kind of the unknown and kind of clearing your mind and being ready to take on whatever kind of the world is trying to show you, and have that kind of intuition to be led down your soul's purpose in life.
Yeah. Beautiful answer, Andy. I want to just end maybe with a quick thought here. One last kind of finisher before we go is I know God in faith is a really important aspect. I encourage people out there to go follow Andy, to go read his 40-day. You'll see it on your Instagram, I believe, right? You could be able to click in and get the 40-day Bible or the daily, Bible. Is that like calling it right? I can't remember exactly what it's.
Yeah, 40-day Bible mindset transformation. And if you just send me a DM, I could give it to you, send you the ebook for free, or you could get the hard copy on the website as well.
We'll send people there, but beneath everything, I can just feel faith that has become a very stronghold in your footing. And God is sort of now has taken a strong presence in all your actions and thoughts, and alongside sort of your God-given purpose on this earth. How important is that faith piece? Just really quick, somebody give me the finisher here with faith sort of being the backdrop really to everything you do.
It's everything. It started young. I was lucky to have parents that instilled that in me, and faith helps you when things are going maybe not the way you envision them to go, to help you keep going on whatever journey that you're on. And I'll tell you one little quick story is when I was younger, I used to pray for three things. I would pray for a high school state championship, national championship, and a Super Bowl. And I would say Our Father, 5 Hail Marys, and a Glory Be, which is like a Catholic thing. But I'll pray for those three things every night. And when I was like 12 years old until high school, and I still pray for sometimes the Super Bowl and stuff like that, just for, hey, you never know. But, we lost in high school the state championship. We lost in the semifinals, and I thought, man, my prayer wasn't answered. I prayed all this prayer, it wasn't answered.
Yeah.
Later on, I ended up running indoor track, and so unconsciously, I won the indoor state championship. I'm walking back to my bag to get my stuff, and I just feel like this energy come over me. And in that moment, I realized what I prayed for had just come true. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. I thought it was going to be a football championship, but it ended up being a track championship. And because of that story, that's why I got my scholarship to the University of Massachusetts. So sometimes God works in a different way than we expect him to work. But at the end of the day, I won the high school state championship in track. That's what got me the scholarship to UMass. That's what helped me get to the NFL. I had a great coach in college. I was lucky to have Mark Whipple, who had coached the Steelers quarterbacks when they won the Super Bowl in 2008, and he had a lot of connections in the NFL. So that faith helps you keep going no matter what, and it kind of makes you realize that sometimes God's got something greater for you that you can't see.
Yeah, what a finisher, man. We'll end with this thought that some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers.
Amen.
Amen, baby. Hey, thank you so much, Andy. This is cool. Could do this all day with you, man. We love to rap. Andy, where can we send people? They want to follow your journey, connect with you, commit to you. Maybe you're gonna do another camp for kids, which I encourage parents out there. If you've got kids in sports, and Andy is just a prime example of what a real athlete leader that is at the pro level actually looks like. Where can we send people to find you?
Yeah, my Instagram for sure, but I think the most value they'll get is from andyisabella.blog, and that's where kind of all my writing and all my work is on there, and where I post most of my stuff. So I think they could just learn a lot from that, and maybe help them on their journey. You never know.
Yeah, and that'll be the link on the Instagram, so you can follow him there. Just stay connected, see his frequency, and then find the blog in there if that's easier for you guys. But we'll put it in the show notes. Brother, I love you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Awesome.
Love you, brother.
All right, I'm gonna close out here. Hey, you guys. So if you enjoyed the show, if you enjoyed Andy, please go follow him, like his stuff, commit, show some support. Please like the show. If you think this show could help somebody, I always encourage our audience to send it to someone that you know that it could help. Tag them. But anyway, this show doesn't work if you guys don't. So we really appreciate you. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.